It was Sarah's first year at university. She had just moved into her dormitory and was eager to start her new chapter. Her dorm was in an old, ivy-covered building that had a strange, eerie charm. She shared the room with a quiet girl named Emma, who seemed nice enough. On the first night, Sarah noticed something strange. The room was cold, despite the heater running at full blast. Emma mentioned that the building had poor insulation, and Sarah shrugged it off. But as the night wore on, Sarah heard faint whispers. At first, she thought it was students in the hallway. But when she opened the door, the corridor was empty and silent. The whispers continued, soft and unintelligible, seeming to come from within the room. She glanced at Emma, who was fast asleep, and decided she must be imagining things. The next day, Sarah asked some upperclassmen about the dorm. They exchanged uneasy glances and told her to ignore any strange occurrences. "It's an old building," one of them said, avoiding her gaze. "Things happen." That night, the whispers returned, louder this time. They seemed to come from the corner of the room, where a tall wardrobe stood. Sarah felt a chill creep up her spine as she stared at it. She decided to open it, hoping to prove to herself that it was just her imagination. Inside, she found only her clothes and Emma's belongings. But as she closed the door, she thought she saw a shadow move behind her in the mirror. Her heart raced, but when she turned, no one was there. Over the next few nights, the activity intensified. Objects moved on their own, Sarah's books fell off the desk, and Emma's lamp flickered. Emma finally admitted that she had been experiencing the same things. "I didn't want to scare you," she said, her voice trembling. "But this room, it's not right." They decided to stay up one night to see if they could catch the source of the disturbances. As the clock struck midnight, the whispers began, louder than ever. The wardrobe door creaked open slowly, though neither of them touched it. A shadowy figure emerged, its form shifting in dark. Both girls screamed and ran out of the room, refusing to return until morning. When they told the resident advisor, she revealed a chilling truth. Years ago, a student had died in that room under mysterious circumstances. Since then, every occupant had reported strange occurrences. Sarah and Emma were relocated, but they could never forget that night. The dorm room remains unoccupied to this day. Moral: sometimes, the past leaves an imprint on the present. If a place feels wrong, trust your instincts and leave. Michael loved spending time in the university library. It was quiet, serene, and the perfect place to study late into the night. One evening, while searching for a specific book, he stumbled upon a locked section at the back of the library. A small plaque above the door read, **, restricted access, authorized personnel only. **. Curiosity got the better of him. He asked the librarian about it, but she only smiled and said, "It's not for students." Michael's interest grew, and he became determined to find out what was inside. One night, he waited until the library was about to close. As the librarian turned off the lights, he slipped into the shadows and hid. Once the library was empty, he made his way to the restricted section. The lock on the door was surprisingly easy to pick. Inside, the air was heavy and smelled of old paper and mildew. The room was filled with ancient books, many of them handwritten and bound in cracked leather. Michael picked up a book with a strange symbol on the cover. As he opened it, he felt a sudden chill, as if the temperature had dropped. The pages were filled with incomprehensible text and bizarre drawings. One image caught his attention, a circle surrounded by strange symbols. As he traced the drawing with his finger, the lights in the room flickered. A low, guttural whisper echoed around him, though he was alone. Panicked, Michael tried to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, forming words he couldn't understand. The air seemed to press down on him, making it hard to breathe. Just as he thought he would pass out, the door flew open. The librarian stood there, her face pale and furious. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, pulling him out of the room. She explained that the books in that section were cursed, filled with forbidden knowledge. Many who had read them had suffered strange and terrible fates. Michael never returned to the library after that night, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him home. Moral: some doors are locked for a reason. Respect boundaries, or you may unleash things you cannot control. Story 3, The Classmate Who Wasn't There. Lila was in her final year of high school when she met Ethan. He was a quiet, reserved boy who always sat at the back of the classroom. They partnered for a project, and Lila found him to be kind but somewhat distant. Over the weeks, they grew closer, and Ethan started opening up. He told her about his love for music and his dream of becoming a composer. But there was something odd about him: he never talked about his family or his life outside of school. One day, Lila noticed that Ethan never seemed to show up in group photos. In fact, he wasn't even listed in the yearbook. When she asked her friends about him, they looked confused. "Who's Ethan?" one of them asked. "The guy I sit next to in history class," she replied, but they just shrugged. Determined to prove she wasn't imagining things, Lila started asking around. But no one else seemed to know who Ethan was. Even the teacher gave her a puzzled look when she mentioned his name. Lila decided to confront Ethan directly. After class, she asked him why no one seemed to know him. His face turned pale, and he whispered, "Because I'm not supposed to be here." Before she could ask what he meant, he disappeared into the crowd. Lila tried to follow him but lost him in the hallway. The next day, Ethan's desk was empty. The teacher announced that there had been a mistake in the attendance records. There was no student named Ethan in their class. But Lila found a notebook in her bag with Ethan's handwriting. Inside was a single sentence: "Thank you for being my friend." Lila later learned that a boy named Ethan had attended the school 10 years ago. He had died in a tragic accident but had always dreamed of finishing his final year. Lila's kindness had given him the chance to fulfill that dream. Moral: sometimes, our kindness can bring peace to those who are lost. Even the smallest gesture can leave a lasting impact, both in this world and beyond. These 3 stories remind us that school isn't always a safe haven. Whether it's a haunted dorm, a cursed library, or a mysterious classmate, the unknown can lurk in the most familiar places. Stay vigilant, stay curious, but always tread carefully. You never know what shadows might be watching.